Hello everyone, welcome to day 7 of the 13 Days of Halloween, and like I said in my last review for the original Scream, which if you guys have not watched that review yet, go back and watch my review for Scream, which I have a very controversial opinion on that movie, but we're going to be talking about Scream 2 for the continuation of my 13 Days of Halloween, which I won't be able to actually get to 13 reviews because I've been filming a bunch of short films for school, so that's been a lot of fun. But let's just jump right into Scream 2 because this movie, to me, is so much better than the first one because the ending doesn't suck. This movie takes place, I think, about 2 years after the events of the first Scream. Neve Campbell's character Sidney has gone off to college with Randy and a bunch of the other characters. Deputy Dewey has stepped down as a cop, but he's still around, and then Gale Weathers is still being a reporter. I believe she's still a reporter, and so you get Scream 2, and a bunch of new characters are introduced. Timothy Olyphant, who is a great actor in this movie, and a bunch of other people that I really enjoy the cast of this film. And I will say one thing, the opening scene is great. I love the opening scene. I think it's very creative of having, them base a movie called Stab off of the events of the first one. So you're basically watching a different alternate version of the opening scene of the original one as characters are watching in the theater, and you have different actors portraying Drew Barrymore's character, and it's definitely more sexualized because of course it is, because that's what the movies do. I do love the opening scene. I think it's very funny. I think both those actors do a great job, and it really does set up like, oh, this killer is back and it's a copycat, and it just sets up that mystery again of why are these people doing, why were those people the targets if they were specific targets for any reason. It just makes you think, and it wraps it all back because this is happening again very close to Sidney's character, and this wraps her back with all her PTSD, and she's dating some guy, and she thinks, okay, this could happen again. The last killer was my boyfriend, and it completely broke her entire trust. And at one point in this movie, she begins to doubt and break up with her own new boyfriend, and it's very interesting. Her character, I love the characters in this movie because like I said, I do like the first Scream for the most part besides the ending, and I think it does really set up those characters, and this movie really benefits from that because I care so much more about the characters in this film because of the original setup. And so this entire movie is elevated because you actually care about these people who are possibly getting killed. And I think the most praiseworthy aspect of this movie is that this movie has guts. This movie kills Randy, which was my favorite character from the last film, who sets up the rules for horror movies. And he has another great scene where they're in a restaurant with Dewey, and he's talking about the different rules of who could possibly be this new killer. And it was just so heartbreaking when Randy is killed because he's on the phone with the killer, and Dewey and Gale Weathers go out to try to find somebody in this park, or in this little, I guess, this area on the campus, the college campus that they're at, and they're looking for whoever's on the phone. They're profiling this one guy because he's a white dude, he's a white male, he has to be the killer, right? Which is very, very true. But no, then they go looking for him, and then Randy's on the phone, and he's going, and he goes up to the news truck, and there's another joke about the cameraman saying, oh, okay, I'm out of here, I'm not dealing with this, he's just gone, he can't be bothered with anything. So he goes over to the news truck, and the killer's in there, he drags them in there, and Randy gets killed. And this is just so heartbreaking because I love that character, and it's so effective because that really shows you that this movie is willing to kill off these very lovable characters, and this movie has the guts to do that. And so when you do get to the portion of the movie where they're running through the college campus at night because Dewey and Gale Weathers think they have some sort of evidence on who the killer is, they go to a viewing room, and they finally gets to a point in their relationship where they actually might get somewhere in their romance. But then the killer comes up, and there's this great sequence where Gale Weathers is in like a sound booth, and she can't hear anything, and Dewey's on the outside of it, and she's trying to knock on the glass to get her attention, and the killer sneaks up behind him, and the killer stabs and kills Dewey. And it's just like, oh my gosh, this movie has the guts to do that. And obviously, Dewey doesn't die at the end of the movie. He's shown on a stretcher, barely grasping onto life. And I love the fact that they bring him up, but I'll talk about it more towards the ending of the review. But the fact that this movie does that, and it makes you hold on that death for so long, and doesn't reveal that he's still alive until the very last moments, is great. For example, you have Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, which I can rant a lot about that movie, but there's a Chewie death, which I thought, when it happened in the movie, when Rey is holding down that ship with Kylo Ren, and they're kind of doing tug-of-war with this giant ship, and then she strikes the lightning at it, and it blows up, and it's like, oh my gosh, they just blew up Chewie, and it's really heartbreaking. But then 2 minutes later, he's showing up back alive on like the Star Destroyer of the evil bad guys, and like, oh, we caught one of them, they blew up the wrong ship, or something like that. It's some stupid line. It's like, come on, you couldn't have let that sit for at least like 10 minutes. They revealed it after like 2 minutes of him being dead, and this movie has the balls to hold off on that and really wait and make you think that Dewey's death is really impactful, because it really was impactful. My family was watching it together, and we all sunk down in our chairs, just defeated after Randy's death. And after Dewey's death, one of my favorite movie cops of all time, it was crushing. It was very, very effective. And I think that's the most praiseworthy aspect of this movie, which a lot of that has to be credited with the first movie of setting up these characters so well. But the fact that this movie has the guts to do this is very effective. This movie affected me with the deaths. In the first one, when Tatum is dying by the garage door, it's very funny, very entertaining. It's a very funny way to die, even though like it's kind of sad that she dies. But it's very, very funny. And there are some funny deaths in this movie, but you feel for them in this movie. And obviously there are a lot of throwaway characters in this film, but there are a couple that really hit hard. And all the set pieces in this movie are just really well done. Everything in the college campus, when it comes to like the sound booth, when all that stuff is happening, very, very creative set piece. Or when they're on stage in the auditorium at the ending of the movie, and it's kind of set up earlier of Sidney's trying to become an actress, and she's acting in these plays, and she's the lead actress for it, and so she's on stage at the end of the movie with the two killers, and she knows all these things, and she's hitting these buttons, causing like the lightning to cause havoc and the buildings to fall over and collapse on her. And it's such a great set piece. And there's one scene throughout the movie when she's performing and rehearsing her play, and there's all these people with masks around her, and all of a sudden there's one ghost face in there, and this ghost face is trying to get to her as all these people are dancing around her, and it's really, really effective. It's such a great sequence, and like it's stuff like that throughout this movie that works really well. And I think this movie has a great red herring, unlike the first movie, which kind of made it a little obvious who the killers are. There was these two girls that are, I think, the two sorority girls that kind of show up, and they don't really have any lines, and they just kind of pop up here and there. And after one of the first deaths happened, they're just kind of outside the door, and Dewey sees those two, and you're like, okay, it's definitely going to be them. And throughout the movie, there's so many chances where it could be them, and I think if it was them, I would have been disappointed, because obviously they have no dialogue and they're just kind of there, and they have really no role in this movie at all. But they were a great red herring, because I thought the entire time that it was going to be those characters, because they made a point of saying, oh, of course the white male is going to be the killer. So you kind of assume at that point, at least I assumed, that the killer is going to be female, which it ended up being, but it ended up being something completely different than what I would have initially thought. And there was one other extremely effective sequence where Sidney and her best friend or her roommate is in the backseat of a car, the police that are kind of escorting her to safety, and they get killed, and the car crashes, and the killer's in the front seat driving the car, and the killer's knocked out, and so they have to crawl through the front window and through the driver's side door in order to get out of the car, because the other two doors are stuck shut. And that is a great sequence of tension, because both of them have to crawl over the killer, and you don't know if the killer's going to jump out or not, and it's very, very, very suspenseful. This movie has some great suspenseful scenes, and that was definitely one of the best parts. And so we get to that ending when it's revealed that's Timothy Olyphant's character was indeed one of the killers, and I love this guy as an actor, and he brings down the boyfriend like strung up on one of these things that he's going to be strung up on the play, and there's this whole thing like, oh, he's also with me, we're both working together, and Sidney just does not know, and the boyfriend is screaming for her to help him, but she just can't trust either of them. And that's yet another great sequence. It's really playing with that idea coming from the first one where her boyfriend was the killer, and she just has no trust in it. She's so conflicted, and it just works so well. And then when he kills him and it ended up not being him, it was kind of also, that was heartbreaking. I mean, the boyfriend character didn't have too much to do in this film, but it was Sidney's reaction to that, and how she really couldn't trust it, and how me as an audience member couldn't trust him. Just, it worked. It was also very effective. Yet another effective kill from this movie. And then of course it's revealed that the other reporter woman that is throughout this movie, which I think that's very funny, that Gale Weathers, being the reporter, the annoying reporter in the first one, is now being annoyed by other reporters in this movie. It's very, very clever. This movie is, and both of them are very clever, but that joke is very funny. But that reporter ends up being Billy's mom, and that she kind of wants revenge for Billy being killed, even though he was a psycho killer, and she's also a psycho killer. But her blaming him, or her blaming Sidney for the death of her son. And I think that motivation is so much better than that of the first one. I know that might be controversial again because everybody loves the first Scream so much, but I thought this worked so much better because it was directly tied to the first one. So you had a little more weight behind it. You had a little more attachment to these characters and these motives. And it just, she wasn't dumb. There's so many moments. I mean, she does have, I think all the Scream movies probably have this issue where, they want to be like the first one. So there has to be some big exposition scene towards the end of the movie where every single detail is explained to the audience as if we were just dumb little pieces of like carpet on the floor and you need to explain everything. And it's just like, you just treat us like people that have brains. Like do something you don't have to exposit everything at the end of the movie. But you know what? It's fine. She does it a little bit for a while, but then she does actually try to legitimately kill her. And that's when Sidney goes behind the scenes and starts flicking all these things. And then that's another thing that I didn't talk about. The guy who was originally accused of killing Sidney's mom in this movie comes back, leaves Schreiber, and he's also very creepy throughout this movie. And that's another great red herring in his character and his redemption that works fairly well. I actually really like Liev Schreiber in this movie, and I think his role, especially towards the end when Billy's mom has Sidney to gunpoint and she's trying to convince him like, okay, you can kill me after I kill her, and then you can be the only survivor, and you can get the news press that you have been looking for throughout the entire movie, and you really don't know what he's gonna do. And I think she could have just killed Sidney. Because if she was expecting for him to kill her anyways, why didn't she just do it? That's kind of dumb, but at least she didn't stab her partner. Oh, she shot her partner. Yeah. God damn it. But yeah, I really like the killer reveal much better in this movie, which is why I think I enjoy this second film much more than the original. I think both of them are really good. They're very, very clever. Both of them have some great scenes of tension and great scenes of comedy. I think my favorite scene throughout all the movies is definitely still the Randy watching Halloween saying that the killer's behind you and the killer was behind him. I think that's my favorite scene in any Scream movie. Maybe I do like the opening scene of the original Scream better. I think those two scenes are better than anything in Scream 2. But I think overall as a movie, this movie was much more effective, and it was much more like you cared about these characters who were possibly dying. You even cared about the boyfriend character, which I was surprised about. And there are so many things that work about this film, and especially the ending that I like so much better, and the set pieces and everything just worked for me in this one, where there's nothing in this film that I absolutely hated, which was definitely better than the first one for me. So, and of course I do want to get back to the whole Dewey situation at the end of the movie when Dewey's revealed to be alive. That was the perfect time to do it because, the audience members, everybody loves Dewey. You don't want to kill Dewey. Like, part of me is like, okay, if they did keep him dead, that would have been really gutsy, and I would have accepted that, and as like, oh wow, this movie had the balls to do that. But they bring him back, which just makes me happy. It made my whole family like, sigh of relief. Dewey is okay. We can live our lives knowing that Dewey didn't get stabbed in the back brutally. But he does he's like a cat. He has like 15,000 lives, or 9 lives. But you can't kill Dewey. You don't kill Dewey. I don't know if he's coming back for Scream 5. I know Gale Weathers is, and I know Sidney is, Neve Campbell is. But I don't know who else is returning for that movie. I've not seen Scream 3 or 4 yet. I probably won't get to those for this year for the 13 Days of Halloween. But next year, I will watch Scream 3 and 4. I'm actually excited to watch those now because I am a fan of the series despite my hatred for the ending of the first one. But for the most part, these movies are very well. So I will finally take back my statement that Wes Craven can't end a movie. He did end this movie very well, and I appreciate that. And Wes Craven, you did good for this one. You did good. So I went deep with this movie because I actually loved it so much. So thanks guys for watching this review of Scream 2. Comment down below what you guys thought of this movie, if you guys like it better than the original, or if you think I'm crazy for hating the ending of the first Scream. If you guys did not watch my review yet for that movie, go back and check out that review. But guys, that will be it for this one. Like I said, comment down below, leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more reviews just like this one on my 13 Days of Halloween series. And I have a new release that I want to talk about. It's called, I think it's the Wolf of Snow Hollow. It's a brand new movie released on VOD, and I rented it and I watched it. So I'll be talking about that and a review coming out very, very soon. So thanks guys for watching. Hope to see you all in my next one.